Hello everyone, I hope you're well. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Now I need a simple card just to congratulate somebody, and I just thought, well, why not come and create it with you so that we can just touch base again. I love to do the YouTube videos just so that I can say hello and that I hope you're all well. I've had sort of a relaxing week, just designing and doing odd jobs here and there. You know, those jobs that just need to be done. I've been doing those this week. So I don't know whether you've been up to anything nice, or whether you've just been chilling or enjoying the lovely weather, or maybe you're on holiday. Whatever you're doing, I hope you're having a wonderful time. So I thought what we'd do is I'm going to create with my auricular stamp. And I just love this floral. It's got nice open space that I can colour with. So I thought we'd use that. So what I'm thinking is, let me tell you my thinking. Let's just grab the stamp. So I can take my acetate, and what I'm thinking is just to add the floral here, like so. And then just add the little heart from the bird at the top that the flower is sort of dangling from. So let's just go with it and see how it goes. And I'm going to colour with my Inktense pencils. I love the Inktense pencils. And what I'm going to do is I'm not going to stamp in black, just so that I haven't got a dark outline. So I'm going to use Charming Pink. So let's use that Charming Pink ink. Again, just like I would with the black, you're going to give that a really good inking, just to make sure that it is nicely covered. And then you can just lift your stamp just to see if that's covered how you wish. And also just dab, you can dab the edge of the text just so that that's a little bit more diffused. So let's have a look. So I'm going to add that around about there. So let's just add this here. So it's not going to be a difficult card. It's just time to spend together. Just creating together. A little bit of colouring, a little bit of stamping. But I do love to touch base with you all and just to sort of, you know, offer a little touch of inspiration. So I've got some Inktense pencils here. Let's hope we can read them for a change. So let's grab my piece of card. So my light colour is going to be Pink Flamingo 0405. Then it's going to be Carmine Pink 0520. And then a touch of the dark colour Sugar Plum 0713. And what I like to do is just keep them in order so that I know I've got the light, the medium and the dark. So I'm going to begin by adding a touch of the dark colour, which is the Sugar Plum. And I'm just going to lay this colour down, just in a circular motion, just to add the dark layer. So I'm just going to add that dark layer to my floral. Now the Inktense pencils, once you dry them, they are permanent. They react with water beautifully, as long as you have the correct card that allows you to move that ink with moisture. Card is vitally important. So that's my darkest colour, going down to my mid colour, which is the Carmine Pink, which is 0520. And I'm just going to, again, as if I was colouring with normal pencils, just sort of adding that pencil to pencil. No different than if I was using a wax-based pencil or something that you blend pencil to pencil. But these are reactive with water and come to life with a little bit of water. So We've got our colours on there. And then I'm going to add my lightest colour for me, which is Pink Flamingo, which is 0405. Just adding that again. So nothing technical at the moment. Well, there never is anything technical, never mind at the moment. So just a little bit of that colour. There we go. And then I've got my fine brush, which is very fine. I've got a little bit of water. I've also got some kitchen roll, which is also my little helper. Kitchen roll is just in case you've got a little bit too much water. And what I want to do is push up. So use the water, activate the, maybe a little bit more water, activate the first colour and then push in to the other colours so that the darkest colour remains at the edge. Just push. There we go. And this is what I just class as my first layer of colour. So I'm just using a bit of water, sort of pushing that darkest colour to the centre area here. Just activating that. So just push it all so that the darkest colour is at that centre point. And this is just your first layer of colour. Which, if you like sort of a gentle approach, then obviously you can just keep it at the first layer of colour. But the Inktense pencils are just so lovely. They really sort of blend nicely. And I've just got my first layer of colour. Now what I'm going to do now is add a little bit more detail. So I'm going to go in direct to the pencil. Now please do not soak that pencil. These are not woodless, so you need to make sure that you don't damage that sort of barrel. So I'm going to add a little bit of the dark colour, and because I'm using a fine brush, I'm not adding too much water, which means I won't affect the barrel and I won't damage that barrel. Once my brush gets a little bit drier, if you use a bigger brush, what you'll tend to do is you will add too much water and you will just flood this and you will ruin your pencils. So just be very aware that you don't add too much of the water. And I just love enjoying myself, just enjoying the relaxing process of just adding that darker colour. And I love that you can just blend that out quite easily. Just to give that a little bit of depth and dimension. I'm also, as you've probably heard me say on many occasions, I am a great believer in just sort of allowing that card just to rest a little. So I'm just adding the darkest of the colours just at that very edge there. And I'm just wondering whether I've got anything really dark. What's the bottom colours? Let's have a look. Not them. So just having a look to see if I've got anything. I have got something even darker that I can add. So this is called Thistle and it's 0720. So I'm just going to add a little bit of the thistle just to give another touch of colour. And also layering the colours, it does just take a little bit of time. So just be patient with that. Okay, so I'm going to go to the mid colour, which was my carmine pink. And I'm just going to add a little bit more of that colour. And I'm just indulging myself on a little bit of colouring. I have to say this fine brush is a game changer. It really does make a huge difference. It makes such a difference that I've even ordered some more finer brushes. And the reason it makes such a difference is it forces you to just not add too much of anything, and you have more control, which for me is really important. So I don't add too much water. I pick up enough pigment, and because I don't add too much water, that works really nicely. Now the card is so important because it won't work if you haven't got that beautiful sort of card that allows you to blend that, to give some blend. Now what I'm going to do is, what have we got here? Have we got a dark purple or blue? I am talking to myself. Now this is dark violet 0760. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of this dark violet onto my brush, and I'm just going to add a little bit of the dark violet just to add a little bit more definition. Now you don't really need to add much, and again this is where that fine brush really helps, because you've got that really fine detail that sort of helps you to not place too much of that pigment down. There we go. And it's just giving that a little bit more definition. just where those lines are. And I often lose myself just in the process. Now, what you have to remember is with the Inktense pencils, you can also sort of flick the colour onto the card. So be aware that, like you can see me, I'm working over the card. If you work over the card and you've got a soaking wet brush, you will end up flicking some of that pigment onto the card. So if you don't want to do that, just move that away, just so that you don't do that. So I've got that really dark colour. So then I'm going to go to the colour I used before, which is the Thistle. Do you like how I couldn't remember? 0720. And just add a little bit more of the Thistle. And what I'm doing is I'm just building up the intensity of colour. Now, because this isn't complicated, and I'm not having any, you know, dictation of, oh, you must do this or you must do that, I find that I get a lot more enjoyment when there's not too many rules, and I can just enjoy what I'm doing. So I'm just adding a little bit of the Thistle, just to give a little bit more depth. And when I just wet the brush a bit more, I'm just moving my pencil just away from my card, just so that we don't end up with me splattering some of that onto the card. I mean, not that it matters too much because you've got all those colours on there. And I'm getting a lovely sort of blend now. I'm going to use the Carmine Pink. Can't remember the names, so I have to keep looking at them. And I'm going to use the Carmine Pink just to blend the colour a little bit more. And I'm going to reiterate, do not soak the barrel of your pencil, because you don't want to ruin that. Now I'm getting a lovely sort of blend, and I'm getting lovely depth of colour, which I really like. And I love these kind of cards where you don't have to think too much. You can just enjoy the process. It's wonderful. And I just love the blend that I've got around there. Now I've left the centre as it is, just so that it pops a little bit more. But just to make that pop even more, let's just get a bigger brush, a little bit of water. Let's use our Distress Oxide Hickory Smoke. Just make sure that your non-stick craft sheet is clean, because it's surprising how you can have some colour left on there. There's quite a bit of moisture on that. Now this is a water brush, but it's broken. I just use it to actually just sort of do this kind of thing. Now, because I stamped in that permanent colour, I don't need to worry. It's not going to move. So what I'm doing is I'm just placing, let's move that out of the way, a little bit of a wash just around the floral. And at the moment, it's just a wash of colour. And I can even go over that text because I've used that permanent ink. sort of go out, use some clean water, and then you can just blend the edges just out a little bit. Now let's just give that a little bit of a wipe up, just so that we don't have too much moisture. And then I'm going to apply the hickory smoke once again. Let me just move that out of the way. I'm just going to pick that up, make sure there's not too much moisture, and I'm just going to go a little bit darker just at the edge. So just pick up the darkest of the colour and just add that to the edge, the very edge of the floral. And I can go all the way around. And what I love is, at the moment you've just got a whole line of that ink, but use a bit of water and you can instantly soften the edge just of the grey. Now if it doesn't soften enough for you, just take a little bit of the grey again and just soften the edge by adding a bit more colour and just dragging out so it sort of blends out in the strength of colour. Just take your time just to add a little bit more definition with that colour. There we go. So what I'm going to do, just while that rests, I'm going to take the little heart from the bird stamp. Let me just take, I'm going to stamp that in the grey, so I'm going to stamp that in the morning mist. So let's take the morning mist. And just add a little heart just at the top. So that's just going to be in the grey. Just to add to the top of that. And then I'm going to add, where's my stamp set? So I'm going to go to stamp set TE4 because it's got the New Beginnings text on there, which you can see has disappeared now. That's because it's fallen off the packaging. Poor little stamp needs a clean. So let's just give the New Beginnings text a little bit of a clean. It's quite dirty at the back, so that just affects the cling. So if you give that a wipe, I will now use the New Beginnings. I'm going to do that in the grey. just to add the New Beginnings. And just so that you can see that. So when I've stamped it in the grey, it might not just be enough for me. So let's just try my black ink. Here it is. Let's take that black ink. Just might have a little bit more oomph. Yes, just a little bit more. And we'll just cut that out. Also, whilst you're doing these little touches, it's just giving the colours that you've added some time to rest. And I always think that if you give it time to rest and then you want to add more colour to your card, you can add more colour without breaking the card down too much, which works quite nicely. So that just pops a little bit more for me. So we'll add our New Beginnings. There we go. And then if you want to add sort of more definition to the floral, once it's dry, you can do that. Obviously you've got a lot of water on there, so you need to give that a little bit of time just to dry properly. You don't want it to sort of bow. Let's just make sure that that's just sticking a little bit more, but you can see, I don't know if you can see that, there you go, there's quite a bit of moisture on that card, and that's why you should always give that time to rest. So I want to add a little bit of shading just to the heart here, and again I'm going to use my fine brush, just take a little bit of that moisture off there, take off the excess, and then just blend that out. And then I'm going to sort of attach this flower to my banner, just so that's attached to the banner. Shall we just give this a little bit of a dry? And once I dry the Inktense pencils, they are permanent. You can also use your Inktense pencils on fabric. Let's just keep that from the reverse. You can let this dry naturally if you wish, obviously. Ooh, let me just put that so that it doesn't fall over. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of colour just to the heart here. It's not going to need much colour because it's not exactly the largest. Right, where are you? Let's move this out of the way so I can actually see the colours. Let's have a touch at that carmine pink. There we go. And before really I could add any white touches, you know, I need to just give that time. I could also sort of add one of my little birds as well if I wanted to, but sometimes I like to keep things sort of simple. So let's just have a look. Let me just, although he is quite nice, let me grab the little bird and another acrylic block. Let's stamp our bird in the black so that it's in the foreground. There we go. And again, because I'm using the black, I've got that permanent ink, and I'm going to cut the bird out just so that I've got the actual bird itself. There we go. You can always tell when Tracy's enjoying herself when she takes her time over creating. Now we'll actually do it the proper way, in colour then cut out. So we'll add a bit of colour. So with this one, I'm going to add the thistle sort of at the edges just of my bird. Sort of the purpley colours really give a lovely sort of shadow. So then that was the thistle. What was this? This is the sugar plum. So let's add a little bit of the sugar plum. We missed that little bit there. So add a little bit of the sugar plum. And then we'll add a touch of that carmine pink. I want to say charming pink, you know, because the ink pad's called that. Carmine pink. So let's just add a little bit of that carmine pink. And then I'm going to use my fine brush. Can you tell that I'm quite happy with my fine brush at the moment? And have to say that sort of purpley colour really adds the depth and the shading that you need. Just nicely adds enough shading. Now again, we could go in with the, was it the thistle? There we go. And I can just go in and add a little bit more darkness. And it doesn't matter that I'm working over this one because I'm going to cut this image out. So I'm just adding a little bit more darkness to that. So just going round the edge. Do you know, I'm a great fan of any, you know, sort of colouring techniques that are just simple, but still give you a quality result. And if that's what you want, Inktense pencils are brilliant. They really are brilliant. I'm going to go to the carmine pink. And we're just going to add a little bit of the carmine pink. Can you see I'm just leaving sort of a natural white area? Just leaving a white area there. Now, if I want to, I can dry this. If I dry it, you can still go in. Obviously, those won't be affected now. You can still go in with your thistle And you can then add a darker edge. And because you've dried the layers before, you're building up that depth of colour. I'm just adding a touch more. And definitely sort of drying the colour and then adding more over the top. I can't emphasise that it does really sort of pop more. It really does. Just lovely. So that really pops. So you can go in and add, if you wish, more of this colour over the top in areas that, if you're thinking certain areas are lacking a little bit of definition, you can go back in after the event and you can still add a little bit more of the thistle and just give a little bit more definition. And then you can, it's that layer that you will blend a little bit, but it just, if you want a little bit more definition, you can still go back in. So let's cut our bird out. So I'm going to cut his little legs out. And if I cut the legs out first, whilst the bird is still in the card, it is much, much, much simplified. It's not as difficult to cut those little feet out because you've got the stability of the bird still being in the card. So it's much, much easier. So I'm just cutting those legs out first, because if I cut the body out, you sort of haven't got the stability of having the bird in the whole card. Ooh. So now I can just and it's just far easier just to cut that out, and I can tidy that up afterwards. So because that bird's in there, you've got that sort of, it's a sturdy piece, so you can cut your bird out quite easily. And just move your card rather than your scissors. It makes cutting out much simpler. There we go. So it makes that much more simplified. I can just add a little bird here. Obviously, I'm going to raise that little bird just so that it's raised up a little bit. So I'm going to use a little bit of my pin flare. Let's just add a little bit of the pin flare, so a little bit just on the back, just so that that's raised up from that floral a little bit. Now, before you can add any touches of white, you really do need to let things dry, because your pens just won't go over. So I'm going to, let's just tidy up a little bit. So let's place the New Beginnings back from TE4, just so that we've got some stamps not in our way. Just means if you move them out of the way. Let's take the auricular. And just move that out of the way, just so we've got a little bit more space. And the little birds. What amazes me is how many times you can use something. And literally, there it is, that's because it's stuck on the packaging. This is why sometimes it's a good idea just to have a little tidy up, and then you haven't got everything in the way. So now I can take my background stamp, which is TE11, background elements. I can just add a little touch of background stamping that just won't be too much or too overpowering. So I'm using my morning mist. I'm a huge fan of the morning mist. I'm just going to use one finger just to add a little bit of that stamping. And what I find this stamping does is it just sort of makes it look even more sort of botanical. So I'm just, and there's just something about this stamp. You can add the text, but it's never too overpowering. It just works nicely. Obviously, sometimes if you'd have done that before you added the bird, it would be much easier. But I just love that it just adds just a little touch of text without being too much. Just let me show you that. Just isn't too much. So shall we ground our little bird? Spot the person that's now got too many things on a desk. There it is, mixed up with the others. So let's just give the bird a little bit of grounding. Tracy just keeps moving things from one position to another. So just give that bird a little bit of grounding. And obviously with the pin flare, it will take a little bit of time just to dry. So I'm just going to add a little bit more of my Inktense pencil, which is 2030, called China Ink. Just to add a little bit more darkness, just to this bottom edge, just so it's a little darker. Just to that bottom edge. Let's grab our little Posca pen. Now, to add the touches of white, it really sort of is imperative that everything is dry. Your touches of white will be difficult to add if those layers aren't dry. So I'm just adding some touches of white just to the little bird, and then I'm going to add little touches of white here and there, just to my floral. And I love this floral. You can just colour it, you can add layers, or you can make it as simple as you wish. And can you see I'm adding very gently the touches of white, just so that I'm not overcooking it, I'm not overpowering anything. So I'm just giving little touches of the white just here and there, and I'm sort of touching my pen a little bit just around the edges, just touching that. Let's reiterate the bird touches of white, just so you can see that. And then we'll add some white splatters, and then I'll, oh, it's like how I was doing that then, there was nothing, the lid wasn't going on. And then I will lift this up so you can see. Obviously, if you need to cover your sentiment up, then you cover your sentiment up if you wish, just so that you don't splatter on the sentiment. And then I'm going to add this to a white card, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to define that edge a little bit more. Obviously you would wait until things are dry, particularly your Posca pen, but I'm going to use the Morning Mist just to add touches of grey. And obviously it's far easier if you're not trying to keep your fingers away from Posca pen. So just let that dry, just to give that a little bit of definition. So let's just adhere this now. And you can see that I'm adding a little bit more adhesive. And the only reason for that is because of the amount of moisture I've added to that card. That's all. That's why I'm just adding a little bit more adhesive, just so that it grabs hold. You can see every now and then it just wants to lift because of that moisture involved, and because the adhesive just hasn't taken a hold. So just give that a couple of moments. Just give your hands a clean, especially when you've got white card. Just give that a bit of a clean. Just so that you can see that. And you could add an insert, so you could add the little bird to the insert. And then we just need a little bit of shading under our sentiment, and for once I allowed the sentiment to make sure the adhesive had stuck, which is just a miracle because I don't normally. And then just have to say the Inktense pencils are lovely. The ease of use is just wonderful. I'm just making sure my little birdie is stuck, just so you can see, just with those colours. That could be an alternative baby card, just so that you can send to somebody. But I just love how this floral is taking centre stage, and there's nothing too complicated about it. It's all very simple and relaxing. So I hope you've enjoyed that. I hope you'll give that a try. Love to all, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.